hello, I decided I was going to try to read another thing because I can't get to sleep, and maybe reading and will help me fall asleep or something. I don't know. Yeah. Today we're reading Corrupt. It's a Chisaki X-Reader fanfiction. We're reading probably chapter 15 through 17? 17, yeah. Chapter 15. Day out. You blinked, staring back at your reflection in the large mirror that had been set up in your room. Heavy diamonds dangled from your earlobes. Your body was tucked into one of the sleek dresses Chisaki had bought for you. Seeing yourself like this, all dressed up and decked out, you had to admit you looked great, but it made you uneasy all the same. You just weren't you, more so a prize for Chisaki to pride around. Still, you had so many reasons to feel relieved. After all, this was the first time in well over a week that you had been allowed to set foot outside of the hideout. It almost felt like you'd forgotten what the sky looked like. You look beautiful, miss, your name. One of the attendants was hovering by you, nodding their masked head in approval. You remembered the soft, vaguely feminine voice from before, the one who rejected your offer to eat together. You smiled graciously. Never mind. Thank you. I was pretty surprised to hear that Overhaul wanted to take me out. It's a nice gesture, but I suppose he's been trying to make up for earlier? No, it's nothing. You couldn't have possibly forgotten about the whole discussion in less than a few hours. Ari was still there, trapped in that dark room, sobbing and clinging to her blankets for dear life. You didn't know what you could do, not just yet, and you would have to be safe and play your cards right, but somehow you'd have to find a way to help her, even if a little. Stunning, your beauty is truly unmatched, a deep voice breathed out. You glanced back towards the doorframe. Chisaki, of course. The attendant bowed their head and scurried off in a hurry, leaving the two of you alone. You smoothed down your dress. That's very sweet of you to say, you smiled, trying to force back all the dark, nasty thoughts. I'm excited for tonight. Do you mind if I ask what you have planned? Chisaki's eyes glistened. He strode up to you, carefully removing his mask and placing it on your desk. For a moment you thought he would try to kiss you or something, but he merely stared it down, looking a bit conflicted. Was he not going to wear it out tonight? It's a surprise, he murmured, brushing his fingers by your cheek. You will find out soon enough. Come now. He offered you his arm, gesturing you to interlink it with your own. Let us enjoy a lovely night. You nodded, pressing up against him. He leaned out into the hallway, scrunching up his nose at everyone who passed by. When he would glance over in your direction, his eyes were gentle. By now you were surely no stranger to lavish gifts and other extravagancies, but you hadn't been expecting to get into the absolute most expensive restaurant in town. Mentally, you asked yourself if they knew Chisaki was affiliated with the Yaki-san? Affiliated with the Yaki-san. And they'd let you in, they let you get in so last minute out of fear. He also could have bought them off. You had no idea. You'd been lying if you said you didn't want to try the food, in any case. This place is incredible, you murmured under your breath, sitting down at the semi-private, seclusive area. Even the table you'd gotten was top-notch. Geez. I could only ever stare at this place from the outside, imagining what sort of crazy rich people came in. Never thought I'd actually be here myself. Chisaki smiled, looking awfully pleased with himself. So I take it this is to your liking? I mean, yes, obviously. I'm glad. I want tonight to be special after all. He let his hand glide across the table and placed it atop your own. He still opted to wear his gloves, though you suppose that was because he couldn't get over all the filth in the outside world. Just the fact that he'd gone out of his way not to wear the mask spoke volumes. You were glad he hadn't. He looked so much more handsome without that freakish, inhumane thing. Of course, the first thing you wanted to do upon leaving that dungeon was to contact your friends and family, to let them know you were safe. Well, relatively safe, at least. Strangely enough, Chisaki hadn't told you that you'd be allowed to speak with them as well. You could be lying, but, well, you really hoped he wasn't. What? Hold on. Chisaki had told you that you'd be allowed to speak with them as well. He could be lying, but, well, you really hoped he wasn't. They were probably sick with grief. Chisaki-kun, have you ever been here before, you asked? Because I wouldn't even know where to start. He shook his head. I have not. But there's no need to be hesitant. You can order whatever dish you want, and if it doesn't please you, I can always get you another. Money is of no concern to me. He said that before you recalled it was clear that he was willing to go to any lengths to give you what you wanted, to make you fall for him. If you were truly to deepen your relationship with him, then a life of extravagancy surely awaited you. You smiled awkwardly, burying your head in the menu. You felt really out of place here. Chisaki seemed to blend in awfully well. His elegant demeanor and charming mannerism gave him this aura of sophistication and importance. The first time you'd ever seen him, you remembered thinking he was some sort of big shot, and you hadn't really been far from the truth. Eventually, you managed to pick something. Chisaki waved the waiter on and proceeded to order the two of you a bottle of wine so expensive that you nearly passed out upon seeing its price tag. He lifted his glass in the air, gesturing for you to do the same. Let's toast, he smiled, to a promising future together. Right, a future together. He'd already decided he wanted to keep you by his side for a long time. Would you be with him forever? Was this the man that you were destined to marry? As always, you didn't have the answers, so you did what was easiest and opted to drown your worries in alcohol. The wine was really good, but you definitely didn't think it was worth its ungodly price. You'd probably have been fine with the run-of-the-mill average thing, actually. The food, on the other hand, was superb. You couldn't stop stuffing your face, even though you knew Chisaki was watching you intently. It was rather ironic how you were dressed in ornate jewelry, wearing a high-end dress, and going at your food like some kind of gerbil. Slow down, Chisaki chuckled, not looking disturbed in the slightest. I'm glad you're enjoying your food, my sweet, but if you're not careful, you might choke. You flushed a bit at his words. He seemed to be rather fond of calling you pet names, and swallowed hard, trying to slow down your pace. Instead, you reached for the wine, but it wasn't too long before your cheeks began to burn, or actually, maybe it had been. You didn't know. The seemingly endless glasses of alcohol had made you lose track of time. You'd always been a happy, chatty drunk. Not that you were really drunk, but buzzed enough that you could feel your inhabitations slowly melting away. It wasn't as if you still felt as uncomfortable talking around Chisaki as you had at the start, but you began doing things you honestly wished you hadn't. For one thing, you became far more touchy-feely. At first, Chisaki didn't seem to pay it much notice. You merely interlinked your fingers with his own from across the table. But then you began trying to play footsie under the table, and your heels were starting to glide up awfully close to his crotch. Chisaki actually blushed. Now, he murmured, gently moving your foot aside. Let's save all that for later, your name. Not in front of all these filthy people. You grinned cheekily. The wine was really hitting you now. How many glasses had you even downed? And why did Chisaki look totally unaffected in spite of having drunk just as much, if not more, than you? You're so handsome, you giggled, making Chisaki's brows jolt in surprise. I really like it whenever I see you without your mask, Chisaki-kun. I know you don't like germs, but I kinda wish you'd keep it off all the time, just so that I can see your face more. I see, he smiled. I would also like to not have to wear it as much. It's truly unfortunate that everyone is so disease-ridden. That aside, are you feeling all right? His eyes were glazed with concern. You're looking quite flushed, your name. If you're all done, I can get the bill and we can head home. No, you blurted out, much more loudly than you expected. Chisaki's eyes widened. No? You repeated, chin quivering. I don't want to go home. Please, not yet. I don't want this to end already. Chisaki stared at you in silence. After a few moments, he smiled again, nodding his head. I understand. You don't have to worry. The day is far from over. We will be returning to the base. We will not be returning to the base immediately. You wanted to ask what he meant, but your vision was starting to get a bit fuzzy now. Out of the corner of your eye, you spotted a far too expensive bottle of wine near the edge of the table. It was empty. When the heck did we finish it? Things started to blur from then on. One moment, Chisaki was asking for the bill. The next, he had his arm wrapped around your waist and was supporting your weight as he led you outside. The chilly evening air nipped at your skin, jolting you back to your senses. Where are we going? You asked groggily. Back to your apartment, he replied. I'm sure you must want to check in and see how everything is looking. You said you didn't want to return to the base, so I thought this would be a better option. But my key, I had a spare made. Right. Of course he had a duplicate. At this point, you shouldn't have even been surprised, really. This man was capable of far more than merely obtaining access into your home. You'd been lying if you'd said you weren't relieved, though. It had been quite some time since you last stepped foot into your own apartment. The scent was welcoming and familiar. You sighed contentedly, plopping down on your butt the second the door closed behind you. Your name, Chisaki frowned. Don't sit down there. It's cold on the floor. You'll get sick. I'm good. You yawned loudly and proceeded to curl up into a ball. It's nice and cool. I think I'll go to sleep now. I absolutely can't allow such a thing. It's fine if... You squealed at the sensation of being lifted up into Chisaki's arms. He was holding you as if you didn't weigh a single pound. You'd already realized this before, but he really was strong. You're flushed and your face is burning, he noted. You have to retain your body heat right now. I'll draw you a bath. Arguing would be futile, you realized. Chisaki had already set you down on the couch and thrown a blanket over your exposed legs. He retreated towards the bathroom. A few moments later, you could hear the sound of water filling the tub. You were still a bit out of sorts, but you managed to shuffle off towards the bathroom once Chisaki beckoned you forth. He smiled, closing the door behind you. When you glanced towards the tub, you could see it was practically overflowing with white, frothy clouds. He made you a bubble bath of all things. It was actually kind of cute. You threw off your clothes and removed your jewelry, too warm to remember just how damn expensive these things were. A moment later, you slipped into the tub, letting out a deep, content sigh. It was practically the perfect temperature. Chisaki was definitely a master when it came to drawing baths. The bubbles clung to your skin, cool to the touch on the surface. You had a sudden urge to play with them, but then you remembered you weren't 5 years old anymore. Instead, you let your eyelids fall to a close. The water was lulling you out of your state of intoxication. You might actually fall asleep at this rate. Suddenly, the door opened. Your head snapped to the side, finding none other than Chisaki hovering by its frame. Your already flushed cheeks began to burn even more, and you instinctively clasped your arms around your chest, even though the bubbles were keeping most of your body hidden. You swallowed. Chisaki-kun? Hello, he smiled, amber eyes trailing down your frame. May I join you? Your head was spinning. You were still in the process of sobering up, for God's sake, and all you could do was stare up at him stupidly. You parted your lips, but he'd already began unbuttoning his shirt. Chapter 16. Warm Bodies. You were trapped in your bathtub with nowhere to go without standing up and revealing your naked body at least. What the fuck? The last thing you'd expected right now was for Chisaki to ambush you while you were bathing in warm water and foam. You actually couldn't even begin to describe your relief for the fact that he'd chosen to make you a bubble bath. The frothy clouds were the only thing keeping him from seeing quite literally everything. You choked out, sinking more of your body into the water. What are you? I thought I'd enjoy a nice bath alongside you. Chisaki loosened his necktie, sweeping it off the side so he could further unbutton his black dress shirt. His lips held a weary smile. You don't mind, do you? After a lovely evening we had, well, I thought it was only natural that we might take things a step further. Your heart was beating so fiercely it felt like it was stuck in your throat. Really, you couldn't even form the words. All you could do was gape up at the tall man and watch as he removed his shirt to reveal a chiseled, muscular, and rippling abs. It made sense that since he was strong, his body would be built, but you hadn't expected it to be like this. Suddenly, all your previous partners seemed feeble by comparison. Chisaki stared at you, never blinking his golden eyes. He pulled off his white gloves and thrown them hazardously onto the ground. You were sure he'd never willingly sully any of his clothes like that. He must have been more impatient than he let on. Don't be nervous, he purred, moving to unbuckle his belt. I won't force anything on you. Your name? It's just, there's really nothing better than a warm bath after a long day, to cleanse both the body and soul. I was hoping we'd be able to relax together, that's all. Relax together? As if. Were you really to expect that's what would happen if two adults were left alone, fully unclothed? That had never been your experience in any case. You were babbling incoherently now. Chisaki didn't seem to mind. Sure, you'd been intimate with others before, but the idea of doing so with him made you all kinds of nervous. You didn't even know why, but your heart refused to slow down. Please, think nothing of it. I just want to be by your side right now. He pulled down his pants and you snapped your neck to the side just as he was about to remove his boxers. You didn't think you were quite ready to see what he looked like down there yet. Thank God for bubbles obscuring your most private areas. They were beginning to dissolve in the water, though, which only added to your nerves. You practically squealed when you felt Chisaki step into the tub behind you. Even now, you still hadn't gotten a glimpse of him completely naked, but things were about to get a lot more up close and personal. Move forward a bit, my sweet. Chisaki's warm breath fanned across your damp skin, gliding in between your shoulder blades. You swallowed and hurried to comply, giving him enough space to sit down behind you. He cleared his throat. Well, not that far up. Give a moment to stretch out my legs, and then you can come sit on my lap the way you usually do. Sit on his lap, when he was butt naked, on his... Don't be scared, your name. In an instant, he wrapped his arms around your hips and promptly pulled you back until you were planted in the space between his legs. Your face was on the verge of exploding now. The area you'd been hoping to avoid was standing taut and pressing up into your back. Chisaki let out a long, content sigh. He allowed his head to hang forward, lips nuzzling your neck. They felt cool against your flushed skin. Sorry, he mumbled lowly. I may be a little too excited right now. I can tell you're nervous, since you're practically trembling in my arms. That wasn't my intention. Even now, you still haven't turned around to look at me. Do you not have any desire to see my body? He spoke the words so effortlessly. You actually wanted to sink your head in the water and drown yourself. Were you the only one who was nervous, or flustered even? Did he actually have more experience than he let on? Embarrassed, he breathed out. Sorry? I'm embarrassed, you sputtered out, hugging your chest in a frenzy. Chisaki-kun, you seem totally fine right now, and it as if I'm the only one whose heart is beating nonstop. It just feels unfair. I thought you'd be at least a little fazed by my being naked in front of you. He didn't say anything for a while. You felt him shift against the bottom of the tub. Is that what you think? Chisaki mumbled. Do you think that I don't find you attractive, or that I'm not eager in the slightest? It's just, let me assure you that it's not at all the case. I'm sure you can feel just how worked up I am. He was gripping you tighter now, wrapping arms atop your own. You didn't dare move them. If they shifted even slightly, he'd be squeezing directly down onto your chest. And he was right in any case. You could feel his excitement. It was throbbing against your back. Chisaki exhaled. This is taking a lot of self-control on my part, you know? You're so incredibly beautiful, your name. And I haven't even gotten to see your body in full yet. You felt just shy of passing out, even though you'd pretty much completely sobered up by this point. Chisaki was doing things to you that you couldn't even comprehend. You'd never been this ashamed of your body before. What was it, even? Were you worried that he would find you as an immaculate as he claimed you were? That he'd be disappointed? So beautiful, he hummed again, and this time he began kissing down your neck. You inhaled, holding your breath, even as his warm lips danced across your shoulder. He was going lower now, kissing openly all the way down your back. You had to bite down on your lip to choke back a moan. Kurosaki grunted. Will you please turn around for me? I want to see your face. You turned around. He would see everything. The foam kept dissolving the more your body tossed and swayed in the water. You probably didn't have much longer in any case. Oh, Chisaki looked visibly surprised. You lathered up more bubbles to cover yourself and swerved in place to wrap your arms around his neck. Your chest was pressed tightly against his chiseled own. You knew he could feel the soft mounds, but at least he couldn't fully see, not while you were gripping him this tightly. Haha, someone's rather bold, he remarked. You didn't dare budge and reveal any more of yourself. Only when you spared him a glance did you realize that he too was blushing, not as fiercely as you, but a blush all the same. His hands fell first to your waist, then dropped further, much to your embarrassment, to squeeze your ass. Well, you'd done it. You were all naked and smushed together. Hooray. It was definitely going to happen now. It's no good. Chisaki rasped, letting his long lashes drape over his eyes. I'm too excited. I need to calm down. How about I wash your hair for you? What? You'd already gone convinced yourself that you two were going to go all the way, but he just wanted to wash you? The fuck? I want to say the next line. I don't want to do it. Do it. Are you gay? You blurted out. Somehow having mustered an ounce of courage, you regretted the words as soon as they came out. His hardened member was standing right up against you. Chisaki didn't look too affected, more so confused. I am attracted to females, he answered calmly. Such as yourself, actually. I suppose you could say I'm only attracted to you since you're the only woman I've ever felt so strongly for. Can't recall there ever being anyone else who even came close. You supposed you should be flattered hearing that. You really were special to him, even if you still couldn't figure out what was going on through his head half the time. Like right now, for instance. So you don't want to sleep with me? You questioned waringly. The absurdity of the situation was melting away some of your embarrassment. You'd almost forgotten that your chest was glued to Chisaki's own. He cleared his throat. It felt like his blush deepened for a moment. I would very much like to do so, but I promised myself that I would take things slowly for you. For the sake of developing a strong relationship. That being said, his eyes flickered down toward your cleavage. Try not to tempt me too much. I don't have endless willpower. I see. You probably weren't going to go all the way. That made you relax a lot. You didn't think your heart was quite ready for that yet. Criminal or not, Chisaki handled you like porcelain, and you were sure he wouldn't go back on his word. He almost felt like you were untouchable now, and that installed you with far more confidence than you'd anticipated. He'd literally just told you not to tempt him, but you smiled brightly and pulled away from his chiseled frame. Revealing your breasts in their entirety. The bubbles had slipped off and covered practically nothing anymore. Dear Lord, Chisaki bit down on his lip, stifling a growl. You were still flushed, but now the idea of rinsing each other off in the tub and splashing around was somewhat inviting. You leaned over towards the other end of the tub and grabbed your shampoo, not even realizing that your bottom half was completely visible. Chisaki rubbed at his temples and sighed. You're not being very fair, my sweet. What's that now? You opened up the shampoo bottle and squirted out some liquid into Chisaki's palm. You grinned before swerving around and letting your head hang backwards. Wash my hair, please. He groaned at the feeling of you pushing back into his lower half, but quickly let out a sigh to compose himself. You hummed contentedly. His fingers were combing through your hair and gently building up a lather. This was rather nice. Perhaps sharing a bath with someone was a lot more fun than you pegged it for. Keeping true to his word, Chisaki didn't try to throw himself onto you, not even once. He worked at your hair calmly and dutifully, massaging your scalp and rinsing off the suds with warm water. It was so relaxing you could almost fall asleep. All done, he spoke, leaning forward to plant a quick kiss on your damp forehead. You rubbed at your eyes and turned back to see that he was smiling. Shall I wash your body now too? He smiled and blushed. If you do that, won't you get too excited and whisk me off to the bed? There's a chance, he mused, but I'll try my best. Then knock yourself out. Next came... What? Can't think straight. Next came a thorough but gentle scrub at the surface of your skin. Chisaki began with your arms, and it was clear from the very start that he intended to clean every inch of your body. You'd been naked with him long enough that you were starting to become quite a bit more comfortable. He promised he wouldn't pressure you into doing anything you didn't want to. You sighed happily. It was like getting a massage at a spa, and Chisaki seemed to love watching your body become even more clean. His hands lingered at your chest for quite a while longer, but you couldn't really complain. Stand up, turn around, and lean forward against the wall. He breathed out. You flushed deeply, but complied nonetheless. You were now more exposed than ever before. Chisaki's golden eyes ranked over your frame over and over again. He licked at his bottom lip, swallowing down his arousal. We have to make sure every spot gets clean. You'd forgotten how comfortable your own bed was. Granted, the one that Chisaki had provided you with in the hideout was much larger and more plush, but nothing really beat that comforting scent and the familiar sheets. The two of you had gotten out of the bath just a while ago. You felt clean and refreshed, and now that your buzz had passed, incredibly tired. I'm sleepy, you mumbled, burrowing into the blankets. Chisaki was setting himself up in the spot just beside you. He didn't have a change of clothes, so he had thrown his boxers back on. He opted not to wear the uncomfortable-looking dress shirt and pants, for obvious reasons. You personally didn't mind, since it meant you got to look at his chiseled body for a while longer. He slipped under the covers and shuffled closer to you, smiling faintly. We can rest now if you'd like, or we can stay up longer to talk, whichever you prefer. I just want to sleep, you admitted. The bath made me really drowsy. Then we'll sleep. Chisaki wrapped his arms around your back and pulled you up against his chest. His skin was hot, just like your own, which made sense considering you just spent God knows how much time in the bath. You noticed he wasn't hesitating to touch you anymore, which was good. You'd both gotten a lot more comfortable around one another. With lips pulled up into a smile, you wrapped your own arms around Chisaki and gave him a tight squeeze. You could feel his throat reverberating as he chuckled. You are so sweet, he murmured. You have no idea how fortunate I feel to have found someone like you in this filthy world, my little treasure. You blushed again. You were sure you'd never get used to the way he doled out compliments with such ease. Sometimes he could be so cold and menacing, yet other times he was warm and gentle. Your eyelids felt too heavy to hold up. Chisaki was tracing his fingers along your cheekbone, mumbling sweet nothings as he stared at your peaceful expression. Your thoughts were beginning to blur, exhaustion hitting you hard, but you decided that today had been a good day. Yeah, a pretty good day, if you said so yourself. It didn't take much longer for you to fall asleep. Chisaki barely even dared to blink, wanting to take it all in. The tranquility of this moment, the innocence of your expression, all of it. He leaned forward, pressing his lips against your own as softly as he could manage. Sweet dreams. Your name? I was right. That made me tired. I'm ready for sleep. Give credit to Kikyo851. She's a good writer. Sorry for all the pauses I took in between everything. You know, it's that one got deeper into that was the wrong choice of words. My screen's yeah. Got a lot deeper than I thought it was going to go for this episode, and yeah. So you'll hear me in the next episode. Bye bye.